everyone. For writing workshop today, I'm going to teach you about two really neat things that you can do if you want to add more to a page that you're working on. So you can add more, like add another sentence, or sometimes when I go back and reread my work, I notice that I left out a word and I want to add that word in so that my sentence makes sense. So these are two things that you can use for that. One of them is a flap, and we'll talk more about this in a minute. But if you know me, you know I love my sticky notes. Okay, we can use sticky notes on our paper to go back and add some writing. Okay, the other one is this. It looks kind of like a mountain. It's not called mountain. It has a funny name. It's called a carrot. No, it's spelled differently than like the carrot that we eat, but you can kind of picture it like the tip of a carrot, how a tip of a carrot is pointy. Carrot. Okay, so flaps and carets are what we're talking about today. Let's start by talking about a carrot. A carrot. So here's a sentence that I wrote. I to the park. Uh-oh. That doesn't make sense, does it? I to the park? No. I missed a word. I meant to say I went to the park. Well, let's see. Gosh, I don't think I can fit the word went right in there. And I really don't want to erase all my words. I can make a carrot. And here's what you do. You make a carrot. It's like a mountain. And that means look up here. And then you write your word up there. So then I would write went right up there. I went to the park. I used a carrot. So if you ever miss a word or forget a word, you can use a carrot to add it in. I went to the park. Now I'm going to show you how to use a flap. And I'm going to show you, I started writing a story. And I have to tell you a little bit of background so you know what the story is, because this is page 2 of my story. So one time a couple summers ago, Dan and I went on a paddleboarding trip. And we paddleboarded out to an island in the middle of the lake where we wanted to stay. And then we were going to go to another island the next night. Well, the first day it was super, super duper windy. So windy that it took us a really long time to get to the island where we were going. And it was getting dark when we got there. So it ended up being late at night and dark. And when we got to that island, it was a place where we thought you'd be able to camp because it was the national forest. But all around the island were signs that said no camping. And it was pretty much dark when we got there and so windy and we were exhausted. So we had to stay there overnight even though the sign said no camping. We just kind of crossed our fingers and hoped for the best. And it ended up being okay. But the next day we got up pretty early and left and went to the other island where we knew there were for sure campsites. But this is the story. This is kind of the middle of the story where we paddled out to that island. So here it is. You can see, I'm going to take off my flap for now and I'll show you in a minute. So I wrote, we paddled to the island. It was hard. And then there's my carrot. See my carrot? It took 3 hours and it was getting dark. So when I first wrote it, I forgot the word took. It was hard. 3 hours and it was getting dark, and I reread it and said, oh my gosh, I forgot the word took. It took 3 hours and it was getting dark. Now I thought, gosh, I wrote that it was hard, right? I wrote that it was really hard, but I didn't tell why it was really hard. So I want to go back and add that part in. So I can take a sticky note and stick it on the edge of my paper and see that arrow? I just put a little arrow, like read this next. So now it says, we paddled to the island. And then here's my sticky note on the edge of my paper. It was super windy. It was hard. It took 3 hours and it was getting dark. So I added a little bit of detail because you could see the wind in my picture, but if you were reading my words, you might not know why it was hard. And I think that it was super windy is an interesting fact to add to the story, an interesting part. So you can always go back and use a flap. You can use a sticky note, or if you don't have sticky notes, you can just cut a little piece of paper and glue it on or tape it on and add in your sentence. Okay, so if you're in a spot where you reread your page and you say, hey, I missed a word. I saw someone do this last week in writing workshop, and I said, hey, that's what we're learning about next week. You're kind of ahead of the game. So if you miss a word, use a caret. Looks like a little mountain, use it, or a little arrow. Use your caret and add that word in. So use a caret if you have like one word or maybe 2 or 3 words. But if you're writing a whole sentence, use a flap if you want to add in another sentence. And writers do this all the time. Writers reread their work and think, gosh, I want to add more detail. I should have said that it was windy. Hey, I can do that with a sticky note. Oh my gosh, I forgot a word. Hey, I can use a caret and add in my word. It's okay. Okay, so flaps and carets. Don't forget about those. They're really handy. Okay, have a great writing session, everyone.